Hello, today I'm going to be showing you how to use the UV Soft Sculpting Wax. It is different than our regular UV wax. The soft sculpting wax is a softer wax. It has a much lower melting temperature. It is very soft and creamy, and it's designed to be used in a different way. Our regular UV wax is designed to use over like armature wire, just to lightly rub over certain wools to use. This one is designed to make a very waxy consistency, and I'll show you how I've used it to make these feathers. I am working on this section here to finish this huge project that I've been working on for an art show. I just have this little section left here, which I'm going to finish creating like I've done here on this area. I've gone from the brown to the brown with the little mix of the gray blue, and then I need to do this little section here, which is going to be the mix of the brown with the blue with a little bit of the white mixed into it. And I'm going to show you how I create these so that if you wanted to make your little feathers, you could do them different sizes. I happen to be making a really large project, so I'm going to be making large ones. But you could use it to make smaller pieces. It gives you kind of this little feathered look. But you could use this for a lot of different projects. Once you learn the application of it, you can kind of use it to do a lot of different things with. So you're going to want, obviously, your wax. It looks like a little beehive. Comes in the little storage can here. I'm not going to use this particular one because I already have several over here that I've been using. But it comes in this little storage can with a little screw lid. When you order it, I have several here already. You're going to want a couple of towels because your hands get very sticky. And when you are pulling the wool, you want to be able to dry your hands off. When you're using the wax, you're going to get your hands very waxy in between. So you want to be able to dry the hands, pull the wool, wax the hands, and get them messy again. So I have two towels to use here. You're going to want a tiny, small little pair of scissors. It could be, this kind, doesn't matter. Just a small pair of scissors. Obviously, your needle felting needle. And then whatever wool that you're going to use. I'm using our Felt Fast wool. It's one of my favorites to work with. It has a very, very short staple length. When you're needle felting, that is one of the things that you really want to look for in a wool, is that you have the shortest staple length. If you look at this wool, when you go to pull it, the staple length is less than an inch. And you can continue pulling that even shorter. It's a fabulous wool to work with for needle felters, especially new felters. It works lovely. So that's what I've done this whole project with, and it's really wonderful wool. So I've got my blue, I've got my white, and I have my brown. So let's get started. So in order to make these, what I'm doing is I'm starting with my brown because that's my main color here. And I'm going to pull a little piece of wool, and I want to make it long enough to make two of these pieces. So what happens is I make a long one, and then I'm rolling it, and then I'm cutting it in half to make two pieces. So I'll get two pieces out of this. So I'm doing it about maybe 4.5 to 5 inches long. So I'm pulling a piece here, and then I'm going to pull a very thin piece of blue. And I'm actually going to pull that in half again, because what I want to do is add a little tiny bit of blue on there. I'll put that back for the next one. And then I'm going to pull a very, very thin piece of white, because if you notice over here, I don't really want a huge amount of white. It's just a touch of white that goes in there. And then I'm going to add that white sort of over here into this piece. And then I want to feel it. I think it's a little thin, so I'm going to add just a hair bit more of the brown. And I'm just going to pull a little piece of that again. And I'm going to add that between the blue and the white again. All right, so I'll get those out of the way so you're not confused. So I have my piece here. As you can see, it's just a long roving piece of wool at this point. And I'll set that aside, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my wax and I'm going to start rubbing it in my hand, because you want to get your hand really waxy at this point. And I'm going to rub it and rub it. And if you want to, you could take your fingernail and you could scrape off some, like this. And you could put it in your palm of your hand. Like I said, you're going to get really waxy here, because we're going to wax up that whole piece of wool. All right, you can get some on your thumb here. And I'm going to use the back of this side of the hand. You see how I'm doing this? I'm going to put this piece back down. And I'm going to rub it in so that you don't see all that white, because I don't want all the white clumps in there. I just want my hand to get super waxy. And this is going to be the first one. I'm going to take my wool, I'm going to lay it in my hand. I'm going to use the back side of that hand where I've already got it all waxed up, and I'm going to start rolling. I'm going to roll the center, move it up a little bit, and then I'm just going to roll each section. And I can use the palm of my hands together. And you're just going to go back and forth and keep rolling. I'm working the wax into the wool. And I'm just going to keep going, because I want to get all the wax worked in. And you want to get these ends down here too. So if you get a little bit on your fingers and kind of work those in. And if you need to, get your, oops, picked up a couple extra pieces. Get yourself a little bit more of your wax. Get it all in your fingers. I've got a bunch of clumps on mine, because after a while it does break up when you've done this much. You get little clumpy pieces. And you can use both sets of fingers and work it in real good. If you need to put some more on your fingers, just pick your wax piece up and work it into your fingers, and then you can go down along the length of your piece, work it all in, and then go back to your palms, because you can really rub it in with these palms. Back and forth. And this is going to take a few minutes, because you want to get it really worked in there so that it's nice and firming. You see how it's firming up? It's sort of like wet felting, only you're using the wax instead of water. And I know people would say, well, why don't you just wet felt it? It doesn't have the same look when you wet felt it, because the wet felting gets it too hard. And it doesn't leave it with this nice rustic look that you get with this wax. And when you wet felt it, you can't really use it right away, because you got to let it dry. With the waxing, you can use it right away. All right. And then once you get it to the level you want, that's about it. Once you get it nice and firm to the level that you want, and I'm not getting it where it's super firm, because I don't need it that level. I just need it to where it's going to stay. Then what I like to do is I like to take my scissors, and I like to chip off just the very tips so they're not like stringy. And then I firm them back up. And then I take my scissors And I cut it right down the center. So I have 2 halves now. I have 2 what I call feathers. And then I take them and I place them on here and I go about halfway. I just want my piece to go halfway up. Do you see how much room that takes up now? And I offset it because I don't want to go right in the up the center of that one. I want to offset it a little bit so that when this one comes on, it now kind of offsets and goes in between the last 2 that we did. And I might do the blue showing on this one and the white showing on the one before it. And I'm not poking down the whole thing. I'm only felting back this back section here, because that way I'm leaving what I call the feather tipped end loose so that they can be feathery, if you want to call it that. And then I leave a little bit of this loose at this edge because that's the loose light feathers. And then we move on and we do the next one and we do it again. So I'm going to take my brown wool. I'm going to pull another section off, lay it out. We're going to take some blue. Well, I already had some blue, didn't I, from when we tore it the last time. We'll put that with the brown. Get a really thin piece of white, because you can see how much that white showed up in there. We just want a little tiny string of it. All right, I'm going to put a little tiny bit more of the brown. I don't like to take too big of a thick piece of brown because you'll end up with a really thick feather. And I've done that a couple of times and I've had to pull it apart after it started going. All right, so here's my piece again. My hands weren't real greasy that last time, so I didn't have to use the towel in between. But once you start making a bunch of these, you'll figure out your hand gets really waxy and oily at a certain point, and then you really have to start having the towel available to wipe your hands down. All right, so I'm going to use my fingernail and get some wax off. If you don't have nails, you can always use like a popsicle stick to get some wax off if you need to. Use the back side of my hand into the palm. That really helps get it nice and see-through and mixed up. I'm going to start rolling it. That helps get it secured in that center. Oops. Keep your ends out. You want to lose your end. All right. Got a little bit of wax right there. I'm going to flip it over and do this end. All right, I'm going to do my little tips here. I like to do the tips before I get the middle completely done, because otherwise sometimes they get caught up in there. Then you might lose it. I hope y'all can see what I'm doing here. I don't know how close I am to the camera because I'm below it. I don't have a very good visual of where I'm at. After I make this one, I'll stop and review, see if I need to reposition for you guys. And you don't have to use our felt fast wool. You can use any roving wool with this. I would definitely use a roving, that way you've got the long length, that, you know, the length of it. You could probably use bat wool, but I think it would be more difficult to get it to stay in a long length like this. All right. Squeeze it. The heat of your hands really helps with this too. It's also really good for these arm muscles. Once you've done about 400 of these, you get a really good arm workout for the day. Because this was such a big project, it was several weeks, because you can only do a section about this big, maybe 6-7 inches on a project this big, and then you got to be done for the day because your hands hurt. Now, if you were doing a small project and you were doing like a little bird and you just wanted little tiny feathers like this big, you know, you could do little bitty ones like this. You could just roll them in your fingers. Obviously, you just do a little tiny piece of wool like this where you pull it off and, you know, you do something really small like this. I'll show you. Little bitty ones. And that wouldn't take any time at all to do something that small. Just clip it, and you could do, oh, this would make really great porcupine quills. Look at that. That took no time at all. You can make them as small as you need to. And just felt them onto your little project, and you'd have really, really cute porcupine quills. But it would also make good little bird feathers. If you wanted to make a little small bird and wanted to put little realistic bird feathers all over. I have to finish my eagle. All right. Okay, let's do the tips. That's why I like these angled scissors. You can really get in there and get those tips really nicely. All right, we're going to cut down the center. We're going to come over here. Kind of like the blue lined up next to that one. Felt this in. Stuff stuck to my fingers. That's why another good reason to have the towel. All right. All right, so then you can see where I'm going with this. So I'm going to finish up the next couple of rows. I'll probably do a row here and then one more row there. So it'll be like 3 rows altogether. Okay. I think you got the gist of the idea. And now you'll be able to make your own feathers. All right, thanks guys.